Are you looking for a way to scale your short-term rental business and buy more properties? Well, co-hosting might be the right fit for you. Welcome to the Co-Host Coach podcast with Joe Roney. This episode of the Co-Host Coach is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents. If you're looking to buy a short-term rental, then contact the STR Savvy Agent team at savvy.realty.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Coach. I am Joe Roney and super excited to have someone from the Northeast here today to talk about short-term rentals and where they are. Merritt Harris with Merritt Badge Property Management, right?
Yep.
Is with us. So thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks so much for having me, Joe. And yeah, it's great to be here and to kind of hear a little bit about what you do and to share a little bit of my journey as well.
Yeah, pretty excited. Obviously, been seeing and following you on social media for a while, and we got to meet at the Short Term Secrets event last month for the first time, and definitely knew you were someone that I wanted to have on the podcast to talk about because you are crushing it. You're crushing it in the social media space. I've seen you crushing it. Obviously, building your management company. So obviously, want our listeners to be able to kind of get an idea of what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, just to give you kind of a background, I've been in real estate a long time. I was doing long-term rental stuff before that. And my experience is pretty wide because I started in long-term rentals. I would do everything from Section 8 to public assistance to direct long-term tenants. And that's kind of why I pivoted in this space. And I live in New York State. The tenant laws are pretty harsh on landlords. And I had enough evictions with my properties that I was like, you know what, I'm going to try something different. And at the time, a lot of my inner circle really didn't believe in me. They were like, this is crazy. Like, that's a bad idea. Your property doesn't fit the right categories. And, pretty much everyone tried to scare me away from it. But I was like, hey, worst that could happen is I could pivot back and rent it long term. So I took a stab at it. I did like the classic old Facebook marketplace, real crappy furnishing, that kind of thing. But I instantly doubled my revenue. And I thought to myself, okay, there's something here. There's something here that I need to learn about. So from day one, the two things I did from day one, first thing is I said, I'm going to build the systems and the back end of the business for scale. So I was like, I know I only have one listing right now. I don't know how I'm going to grow, but I'm going to build for scale. So the entire tech stack from day one and the business foundation from day one, I focused heavily on that to scale. And the second thing is I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to share my journey. I'm going to share a reel every single day about what I'm learning. This is what I'm going to do. It's a short reel every day on Facebook, primarily on what I'm doing. And the combination of those two things were pretty explosive. I think we've 2.5 to 3x growth every year. Because I quickly realized as I started sharing my journey that people were like, hey, how are you doing this? Hey, how can I do it? Hey, could you help me? Hey, I have a property that's sitting vacant. Hey, I have a second home that I'm losing my ass on. And as that conversation continued through social media and through organic, I basically realized, oh, I'm building a management company here. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was just sharing my journey about doing my first Airbnb that I owned. And I realized, oh, I'm building a management business. So that's kind of the short story. And ultimately, I also had some commercial experience in the background. I renovated a 100-year-old church. So I kind of have like a variety. I've also done industrial real estate, but I landed on this because I love hospitality. I love people. I love serving people. And it really just clicked,
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I love when I get to talk to people that grow their stuff organically because, the most successful people that I've seen in this space are the people that are growing their business the way you are. They're growing it organically. They're not, I'm not saying you haven't script traced or done cold calling, but they're not coming into the business like, oh, I'm just this, keyboard warrior and I'm going to skip trace and find all these people and I'm going to start managing properties for them. Like, you did it with your own property, with your experience, and that's how you grew. So how many properties, I guess, that first year did you pick up and where are you at today?
Yeah, so it kind of went 8, 12, 30 something, and we're actually a little down right now into like the mid 20s properties under management. I'm actually, that initial property that got me into this space, I'm now selling. By the way, if someone is interested in buying a really great cash flowing duplex, I'm selling it off market. and it does pretty well, but it doesn't fit my direction. It's kind of like an urban kind of midterm rental, and I'm doing
Yep.
more luxury large properties, right? So it didn't fit and align with my vibe, so I decided to sell it. But yeah, so we're currently up to 25 right now. We have two construction projects going. So my background is also in construction project management. That's when I was in the industrial side. So we're working on two properties right now that we're fully rehabbing. I mean, some of them to the studs,
Wow.
and doing a full remodel, a full setup, and then design and then launch under management as well. So right now, like a big chunk of our business, especially in slow season, is the construction element.
Yep.
And then yeah, so we got a couple in the pipeline as well, but we're kind of around mid-20s right now.
Okay. Okay. And primarily in that North New York area, or are you scattered throughout?
Yeah, so we are pretty concentrated on like Eastern Finger Lakes, Central New York, and we're moving a little bit further east towards like Wyndham, Hunter Mountain. There's like a really cool ski resort area out there. Previously, we've managed in Florida. We had a couple of markets in Florida, and we've also managed in the Cape Cod market for a little bit. But right now, we're concentrated mostly in upstate New York.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to be. I literally had someone call me today and wanted some advice and some coaching. They were getting into this space, and I was like, "Yep, pick a market and dominate it. Dominate your market because you don't need to be spread out. And you've probably learned
Yes.
being in multiple different markets. It makes our job harder when you're trying to manage multiple teams in multiple markets. Is that why you shifted back to just being in your area?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, exactly to your point, like, especially when you're a full service, you're not a co-host, you're like a full service property management, which is what we are. Having centralized teams is everything. Like the hardest part of this industry is the fact that you actually have to be really good at managing people.
Hmm.
And managing people is really hard. Now, if you imagine you're in, three, four, five different markets, now you're managing decentralized teams in each market, which is its own challenge already. So when I I've always kind of been mostly centralized in this market, but when we had those one off, two off markets, it was always the same thing. Now you have to rebuild an entire team,
Yep.
and build new systems around those new teams, and maybe those new teams aren't used to your existing systems, and so it's definitely like that economy of scale. The other thing too is like I'm a little bit in a mid-sized metro market. We're about 500,000, 600,000 population here, and it's a lot easier to dominate when you pick a market and you become kind of like the monster in that market, right?
Yep.
Versus now you're spread out into all these little markets. Well, who are you? I don't know. Oh, you only manage five in this market. So it's so much easier to dominate a market and then become the person, right?
Yep.
So it's a little bit of the consolidated teams, but it's also a little bit of that brand awareness. Like people know me as the upstate New York Airbnb guy, right? So it helps a lot in terms of branding and in terms of focus.
And it probably makes it a lot easier for acquisitions because you probably have people calling you instead of you having to call them all the time.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, almost 100% of my business is in warm inbound.
Yep.
It's people calling me. They already think of me or know me or trust me as the area expert. So it's just a lot easier that way, right? Like
Yep.
even in those submarkets I was in, I wasn't getting warm inbound there.
Yep.
It just wasn't, like unless it was a referral or an existing client's additional property. That warm inbound mostly comes in my market because I'm known in my market, right?
Yeah. And this is what this podcast is all about, right? This is the Co-host Coach podcast. And I truly want to help people be able to build and scale their businesses. And that's really what we talk about. And I talk about this a lot. Like pick a market, dominate your market, become that person of interest like you've done
Mhm.
in your market. And you're a prime example of everything I've been preaching for over a year on this podcast on how you've grown and scaled to I'm going to assume a multi six-figure business.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say this, like if someone is newly in this industry, right? Someone is looking for time freedom, looking to get out of their day job, maybe has kind of similar to your journey, had a small business, but kind of wants to get into something that's more scalable. The co-hosting business is a great industry to get your feet wet in that regard because you have the monthly recurring revenue, right? It's a model that you sign a client once and you have that income for a good amount of time. I think I saw some data somewhere that each signed contract has a lifetime value of around $80,000. that's pretty insane. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty significant, right? So lifetime value, if your listeners aren't familiar, is just like measuring the monetary value of each client you have, right? So the lifetime value of each client being around $80,000 in the co-host property management space is significant. So it's really a compounding business, right? It's this business where you just start stacking up wins, and it compounds because as you stack them, that monthly reoccurring just goes up, right? So
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. And I also just on the side, it's not really my main bread and butter thing, but I take on a few consults here and there. It's typically around one a month to help newer co-hosts, typically ones who have like 1 to 5 listings, learn how to scale properly. Because the biggest thing I've noticed, and the reason I noticed this is when I was looking at other property management companies to acquire, is a lot of those smaller size co-hosts don't have a strong foundation.
Yep.
Right? Like they don't have this foundation where suddenly they have 10 listings and they're dead. Like they have no clue how the banking works. They have no clue how to monitor cash flow. They have no clue how to like manage vendors in a really great automated way. And they feel really lost. And so just because I love teaching, I love coaching, like my mom was a teacher her whole life. I take on about one of those a month just to help them scale their own businesses. And that's been really fun.
Yeah. So one of the things you talked about, obviously, is the systems and stuff that you put in place. So what are some of your tech stack and some of the systems that you put in place from the get-go that you're still into today that's really helped you scale this?
Yeah, this is what's interesting too is observing that from day one, before I even started an official management business, when it was just my own listing, I have the same core tech stack as I had then. Like I've added a couple of new tech things into the stack, but when I reflect on that, it's kind of surprising that like those happen to work so well. So my PMS, which I know is not an official PMS, but is Hospitable, and that's worked well for us. I like Hospitable because they're constantly improving and adding new features. See, a lot of PMSs kind of are stale and don't really change much. It's also very user friendly. So when it comes to VA and team members learning it, the learning curve is really great. So I use Hospitable as my PMS, guest messaging. I use Price Labs for revenue management. We use Turno for cleaner and maintenance scheduling. And we obviously Hospitable is how we connect all the different platforms as well. And then the ones we've added in more recent years as the team has grown are more like back office tech things to help us run smoothly. So we use Asana, which is kind of like Monday.com. They're project management tools. We use Slack for internal communication. And then about 2 years ago, we added OpenPhone, which is just rebranded as Quo, QUO. And OpenPhone is basically a tool that the entire team can do outbound communication. So it's like a phone line and a texting line to reach other people externally. And then in terms of like back end business, we have QuickBooks Online. And we also use VRP, which is a trust accounting software to kind of manage the finance back end of it. So the tech stack is pretty robust and it keeps growing, it feels. I've maybe missed one or two in there, but it's a pretty heavy tech stack.
Yeah, almost everything identical to what I have. I do use OwnerRes over Hospitable. I still use Hospitable for the messaging because I have an API connected onto my Verbo, but I'm actually dropping that this month and API connecting everything and going all in with HostBuddy AI. And
that's the one that's on my radar. Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Yep. So I kind of wanted the AI, the bugs to get worked out, other people to make those mistakes before I decided to do it. And everybody that I've talked to said that by far HostBuddy was the most robust and had the best stuff. So over the next 30 days, that's going to be on my plate to implement that going into next year. But I still handle all of my own guest communication. So I don't have VAs that do guest communication. I have VAs that do help with other things, back-end operations and KPI reporting and stuff like that. But I'm assuming you have VAs that are handling some of your guest communication as well.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like my VA team, so I have 3 full-time VAs. They're really great with the guest communication bit, and they prefer not to use, because Hospitable has some built-in AI features. They tend to prefer not to use those. But that's also just because they're good at what they do, and I have 3 of them, right? So like in terms of coverage and around the clock stuff, like we're pretty well covered. But yeah, right now our team is a big thing for me. It's actually the thing I'm probably the most passionate about. I was kind of like in managerial roles before, and I really enjoy overseeing teams. So we have a full-time property manager who's stateside, and she's been with us about 3 months. and she's incredible. And then we have 3 full-time VAs that have different focuses.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that's, the full-time operations property manager is probably going to be on my radar down the road. We just went from 13, we're kind of going back down to 9, and then
Mhm.
going to go back up, similar to what you said, pumpkin planting a few,
Yeah.
on the bottom, and then picking up some more quality. But, all of mine are luxury, 150
Mhm.
plus, except for a couple. And that's the direction that we want to continue to go. And it sounds like yours going in the same direction.
Yeah. So right now, I would say we're like, say if you grade luxury as like an A class and then, or A plus, and then you have like maybe upscales like a B, and then C is like more your economy. I would say we're mostly B
Hmm.
with some C, but our direction is becoming more selective, right? So like again, for your folks listening who are building a co-hosting business, like beggars can't be choosers at first. You want to prove that you can run things, right?
Yep.
Like you want to prove that you can run the show and that you can fully handle things. And oftentimes you're going to take a listing that maybe only does 60, 70K so that you can prove your stuff, right? You can prove to people that you can handle things. But eventually you start becoming more selective. So right now, our bottom is 80K. So we won't take anything that does under 80K. So we're just more selective. And same with you, like Pumpkin Plan. I love that book. We're pumpkin planning stuff too, going into 2026, probably in spring. That's our plan, is to drop some of those lower performers. There's revenue performers, but there's also like difficult clients when it comes to
Yes.
that as pumpkin planning as well. And sometimes
Yes.
the difficult clients will take up 80% of your time and it's just not worth it.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I took on 2 properties earlier this year and I dropped them within 30 days, and they were both 150K properties. And I had more messaging from that owner in 30 days than all of my other owners combined over the course of 3 years. Like
Yeah.
literally it was an absolute nightmare. It just wasn't a good fit. And, but that was also, I made the mistake of taking someone that self-managed to start
Yeah.
managing for them. And I always tell people that's a huge mistake. If you have somebody that's self-managing, they are not going to be ready to give up the reins because they've been self-managing for so long. They're going to be the hardest transition than somebody that's already using a property manager.
That's it. That's very interesting you say that, because my two biggest clients that we lost this year were both self-managing before we took them on, and they did all right. Like they weren't like getting 4-star, 3-star reviews. Like they did all right. What I tell people when I'm like consulting them is typically the first step is to have like a reset conversation, right? And I heard this from Dave Menapace, and this worked, kind of got us through. But basically, you have a reset conversation with your clients where you say, hey, listen, we manage properties and we do it really well. I'd be happy to manage your property, but it seems more like you want to manage it. If you want to manage it, that's totally okay. We'll let you take it back over. Or if you want, we can continue managing it, but you have to fully trust us.
Yep.
And it's kind of a hard conversation to have, but basically you're resetting them to saying, we can either fully do this or you can fully do it.
Yep.
We're totally happy if you want to fully do it. And that there's an element in sales psychology, there's an element of letting go of that client, like basically releasing them like, hey, if you want to manage this, that's okay. When you do that, there's an element in sales psychology that kind of makes someone want and desire you more. And so I always just coach people to do that. Is like, hey, first you have the hard reset. If you have that hard reset conversation and they're still not adjusting to you fully managing, that's
Yep.
when you have the pumpkin plan conversation. Hey,
Yep.
listen, I've loved working with you. It's been great. Maybe you give them a referral to someone else who is more of a guest messaging only co-host, so that you leave on a good note and you say goodbye, because they're going to end up you're going to end up losing money on them with the amount of time you spend managing their anxieties.
Yep. And it's, and some of these are really great people. Like the owners I was managing for, they're really great people and I love them to death. It just was a hard transition when you go from A to B, and we ended up having that pumpkin plan conversation and they took it back over and everything was good and they had a successful summer, and we still have a good relationship. We just,
Yeah.
it just wasn't a good fit for that. So, it definitely, in this business, there's going to be people that you manage for, and they may already have other managers. Doesn't matter. There's going to be some people that are really difficult,
Yeah.
and they may be the top performing property, but
Yes.
but the headache ain't worth it.
Yes, I dropped my top performer in 2023. Same exact reason.
Yep.
Top property, great views, incredible pool in Skinny Alice, which is like a very high end community here. Difficult owner.
Yeah.
Really difficult owner. She once told one of my guests, and this is, I no longer have owners as co-hosts on the listings, but she once told one of my guests, don't touch the thermostat. I was like, no, that's not happening.
Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah. Yep, I agree. It definitely makes it a little bit tougher. I'm still the traditional co-host model. Multiple reasons for that. One is being a real estate agent, not dealing with trust accounting.
Yeah,
It just less liability on my end.
yeah.
And then, the second part of it, I mean, technically in Florida, I could do it the full service route, and
Mhm.
we may end up transitioning into that down the road. But it's just how we got started, and I just kept scaling it the way it is, and it works for
Yeah,
us. So, we're also not a 25 plus or a 50 plus. I
right.
don't I don't think you could do the traditional co-host model with 20 plus properties and be really successful at it. I think it would make it very challenging.
Yeah. So here's my take on that is I see value on both sides. The challenge, the main kind of value that I see with the full trust accounting, like owning the accounts versus being a co-host, is like more on the business valuation side,
Yep.
right? Which a lot of co-hosts, maybe they just want to co-host one or two for some side income. They don't really care about the business valuation side. But if you're starting to think about your business valuation, having kind of that more control and more stickiness to your business
Yep.
is really key, right? So you're thinking, when I say that business valuation, I mean like you're thinking about an exit, you're thinking about selling your business someday. So for me, that was part of it, and part of it was a little bit having, uh, I guess some more control without that sounding very negative, but more control over what happens in my business because I get nervous with co-hosting that you're easier to kick off. But to your point, if you provide a really good service and you're a co-host, you don't really have to risk being kicked off the listing like that. But it's just something that adds a little extra layer of stickiness. When
Yep.
I own the listing, I you manage the money. It gives a little bit of a stickiness there to our service where a client maybe gets pissed off one day and that happens. They can't just boot me, right? They get pissed
Yeah.
off. We work through it, and it's just not as easy for them to basically just say, you're done.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yep. Well, for the record, my clients don't even have access to their own Airbnb account. So,
do you
but I
tend to
do.
make an account for them and then okay,
Yep.
yes, I've heard of that strategy. Yeah.
Yep. So there might be one or two of them that do have access, but for the most part, none of them are even logged into their Airbnb account. So,
So
it works.
you're still full service for all intensive purposes. Yeah.
Yep, yep. We're full service. We just don't collect the funds.
Yeah.
We get them at the end of the month. So, but yeah. So what's next? Like, obviously you're up to 25. You're growing. You're scaling. Like, what's the direction you want to take your business to,
Mhm.
and what's your strategic plan to get there?
Yeah. So I have a couple of goals. So some of them are for my business and some of them are just for life goals in general. But for my business, my hope is to get up to 1.5 million revenue next year. On our trajectory, we 2 to 3x every year. I think we can hit that. So that's pretty exciting. Um, I want to continue to build my team. I'm really big into people development and I love kind of developing and seeing people on my team flourish. So I'd like to potentially hire another operations manager or potentially like a maintenance manager to oversee kind of that wing of the business. I think that would be very exciting. And then one of my other just life goals is to develop 5 millionaires, right? Which is part of why I do the consulting bit is I love to see other people flourish. So in my goal there is hey, let me give you a framework so that you can build something big, that you have an exact framework to do that. Because I love to see other people succeed around me. The whole like rising tide raises all ships, right? It's like
Yep.
as I grow, I want other people to grow around me. And so a lot of my goals have to do with raising up other people around me as well, not just myself.
Yep, I love that. And it's kind of how I started this, and I started my co-hosting mastermind, 3 years ago. And, Michael Dinwiddie, who's a coach for Short-Term Secrets now,
Mhm.
he actually was one of my first mastermind members back in early 2023. He joined my mastermind, and
Awesome.
him and Austin Spitz down
Mhm.
in Texas, and Philip and Zach Munoz. And we just kind of created
Mhm.
our own mastermind and said, let's help each other grow businesses. And that's kind of where it started. And we just got on weekly calls, and it was free in the beginning. Then I started charging.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm officially ending my mastermind at the end of this year, and we still have our group, we still have our community. I'm just
Mhm.
not growing that side of the coaching business
Yeah.
because the real estate side has taken off, and I'm teaching new investors how to invest, which is
Mm.
just as fun. and
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying that side of it, which is, so I'm kind of shifting gears. Actually, this podcast officially is going to turn in from being the co-host coach to being the short-term rental playmaker starting in January. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's cool because you still like while you're doing a pivot, you're still getting to like pour into people, right?
yep,
Like that's the thing for me is like it doesn't really matter what it is, right? Like even people who are like, "Hey, I'll help you build a landscaping business." I love this idea that like, "Hey, here's some knowledge, some tools and a framework."
yep,
Right? You take that and you run with it. Like, and no matter what direction you're going with that, it's cool to see other people run with the framework and have explosive growth. And I'll say, knowing the folks who are in your mastermind, like I've seen those folks grow. And so it's really cool to see your input into their lives has, drastically improved and impacted other people's lives as well. It's really cool.
yeah, yeah. Michael's one of my favorite because, I coached him for a long time, and now we're actually hopping on a call so he can teach me everything he's done in Notion and how he's gotten these systems in place. And that was one of the main reasons for me joining the Short-Term Secrets is like, I'm decent on the back end, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of operations that I know I could do better. And that's what that mastermind is really good at. That's one of
Yes.
the things they're great at is getting those back end operations, getting the VAs, getting the SOPs, getting all that stuff in place. And that's the reason why I joined it for that period of time.
Yeah, same here, actually. That's exactly the reason I joined. Like I loved how much of a business development focus they have. Just
Yep.
a strong focus on like systems and having a good foundation.
Yep. Yep. So are you looking to acquire more properties yourself as well, or
Not
just
right now,
continue
no.
on that?
So I pivoted because I got into this space with properties that I owned. But I'm pivoting away from that just because I'm trying to have a sole focus, right? So
Yep.
my sole focus is building the best management company in upstate New York. So that's kind of like I'm trying to hone in on that. When the
Yep.
time comes, when stuff, when the business is a little bit more scaled, probably like 5-ish years, I'll look at acquiring some of my own properties. I haven't determined yet whether that's the glamping space, which I'm pretty passionate about, or whether that's hotels or whether that's super properties. But when the time comes, I'll know. But right now, I'm like full pause, no focus on acquisitions. It's one of those things where like there's so much fun stuff to do. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna look at hotels. I'm gonna look at a glamping space. I'm gonna look at an Airbnb. I'm gonna
Yep.
look at RVs. There's so many fun spaces. But what I've noticed is I get diluted if I have like a million different focuses. So right now it's just straight build the management company, right?
Yep.
Build the management company and build it to be the best company. And beyond that, when things get a little bit more passive and my team is a little bit more self-sustaining, then I'll start to explore ways I can invest.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. It's funny. You said you had a goal of 2026 to hit 1.5. I looked at it before I actually got here today. We're at 132 right now.
Nice.
With the current properties we have, we're not going to quite hit the 1.5 this year, but even with dropping the 4 that I have next year, we're going to hit 1.5 with 9 properties next year.
That's awesome. And that's the power of the luxury property,
Yep.
right? That's the power of a luxury property is that the revenue stream is just so much higher.
Yep. And it's the same amount of time for, and that's why I've always resonated with Bill Faith so much. And I'm actually a mastermind member of his because he has the mindset of, I want the least amount of properties to make me the most amount of money. That was 4 years ago when I got into the space, that was one of his first ever podcasts that he talked about. And I'm like, that to me makes sense, right?
Oh,
I don't want 100 doors, that
Exactly,
doesn't sound, like what I want. So.
Yeah, because also when you think about it from the business valuation perspective as well, it's the same exact situation, right? Businesses are valued on NOI. Businesses are valued on like basically what your cash flow or EBITDA, your profit is, like how much money you make after you've paid your entire team and your entire operational costs. It doesn't matter if it's 50 properties or 500, right?
Yep.
Like you could have 200 properties that are making the same as 50 in terms of your business revenue and cash flow. So it's that same model. And that's exactly what the pumpkin plan is like. We have 8 suites right now. It's just not, you know what I mean? Like the revenue from those is kind of like boutique hotel. It's just not there. I could take 100K property and replace all of the revenue from those 8 doors.
Yep.
Just like that,
And those are time consuming because you have 8 different guests and 8 different check-ins and 8 different turnovers and all that
8
stuff
keys,
going on.
8 toilets, 8 AC systems, 8 TVs. Yeah.
Yep. So,
trust me. I'm like over here banging my head.
But it's funny because I've had a lot of people on this show and I've met a lot of people, through the different events. That's what I love about this community is I've not found a single person in this community is like, I don't want to help you or talk to you. Like everybody is in this business to be able to help each other.
Yeah.
Because we're not in competition with each other. we may compete and say, hey, who can have the best revenue or whatever it is, but you don't have to lose for me to win, and vice versa. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about this business. And I've talked to so many people that have scaled to a lot, and then they're like, ooh, hold on, hit the brakes. Let me
Yeah.
come back. That wasn't the right move. And I'm seeing it time and time again.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. So one of the things I was reflecting on earlier this year is I'm a musician. It's just a hobby. I've never been a professional musician, but I'm a musician. And one of the things I was reflecting on is, for years I tried to kind of turn that into to monetize it, basically to turn into like production and recording other people's music. And the thing I noticed is like it's a creative industry, but it's not a collaborative industry in the same way. Like it was interesting how like in that space, in the music space, I didn't see the kind of collaboration I see in the STR space,
Yep.
right? Like I wouldn't say that's true for like commercial. Like commercial is very cutthroat, like insider secrets, like don't come into my neighborhood territory.
Yep.
I don't like that. The STR world is very collaborative where people share openly their skills and their strategies. People give a lot of free content. People want to see other people win. Like I've probably referred out $50,000 worth of properties that I didn't want to sign to another co-host locally.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's like $50,000 of revenue. It didn't fit my model, but I just freely for nothing gave it to someone in my market who does manage that kind of listing, and so I was reflecting on like, man, first of all, I wish that existed in creative space sometimes. Like, why is the
Yes.
creative space that difficult where people aren't helping each other like this? But it also makes me feel at home in this space because in hospitality, it's like, again, everyone loves hospitality. Like we
Yep.
love to treat each other. We love to pay for each other's dinners. We love to take each other out. We love to give each other tips and advice and that kind of like symbiotic, like synergy that happens in this space is what keeps me around, even though there's obviously headaches in the industry too, but
Yeah.
it definitely keeps me around.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and like I said, it does matter. I've been in short-term secrets. I've, talked with Luke and Avery Carl before. I've, obviously been in Bill's mastermind and all the different big gurus throughout this space, and they're all in the same boat. They all are really there as a sounding board to help you and help anyone that's in this industry. And we all started to be that first guy starting out. The call that I had earlier today with a guy that's trying to, grow his co-host business. Same thing. It's like 30-minute call. Yes, it was free of my time, but
Yeah.
man, if that helps him just one little smidgen to be better and create a
Yeah.
better place, because the way I look at it is if we have better hosts, then we all look better
Yes.
and we all get to increase our ADRs and we all get to make more money when it's all said and done. Like my next door neighbor, I'm like, hey, can you design your property better? Because I want your property to have a higher ADR so I can raise mine.
Yeah.
Like we all can lift each other up. And I do love that part of this business. So
Exactly. And also like to your point, like if we have subpar hosts and subpar Airbnb owners, what's happening is Airbnb already has somewhat of a PR issue with that, right? Like inconsistent quality, inconsistent experience. If we help others improve that, the entire industry gets a better name. Like, hey, this is a great experience. You'll love staying at our Airbnb. You'll love staying at our property versus you have subpar hosts who do the bare minimum and it just puts a bad name, it puts a bad name out there.
Yep. Nope. Awesome, man. Well, I am so appreciative of you coming on and talking with me today. It has definitely been an honor to have you on the show. I know our paths are going to cross many times over the next year, 2 years. No big conferences right now with the STR Wealth Conference gone, but I know there's going to be some micro ones and some different things. So I'm sure that's going to happen. And maybe in the savvy side of this thing, we'll get to cross paths down the road. So, but any parting words for our people that are listening on some advice that you can give, and then obviously, tell them how they could get a hold of you if they're looking for a co-host or looking for some, maybe that one-on-one, coaching. How can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I think my final words would be just in terms of people getting into the co-hosting space, right? Because that's kind of what your focus is right now. Is keep at it. Like some days are discouraging, some days are down, some days you get those late night calls, and it can be discouraging. But if you keep at it and you just kind of use some grit and some perseverance through those hard days, the wins are more than the losses, right? But you have to have that grit. So don't give up. If you're discouraged, you're not getting enough leads, or maybe you lost a bunch of clients recently, like don't get discouraged. Keep at it, because the wins end up stacking up over time. And I truly believe that like what you will learn and in terms of your own growth, if you stick at it, will be far more worth than even the revenue you make, right? Like the
Oh yeah.
person you will become will be far more valuable than the money you'll make. And you'll become a person that has like higher ability to stand pressure and higher ability to serve folks who have more money and higher ability
Yes.
to be confident in who you are. So that's my final word. And then in terms of contact, I'm most active on Facebook. It tends to be the platform where I spend most of my time. And so you can just look up my name, Merritt Harris, on there. And I'm also on LinkedIn. And then in terms of like Instagram and TikTok, it's all Merit Badge MGMT. That's the handle. So MERIT BADGE MGMT. That's where I'm on those platforms. But I'd love to connect. You can connect with me through those platforms. You can DM me. And in terms of the console, if anyone's interested in that, I'm very limited. I try to only take one a month because just time, and I'm running a management business and construction side of the business. But I love helping folks. And so if anyone's interested in that as well, you can reach out through social.
I tell you, if you just follow him on Facebook, you're going to get a daily
Exactly.
post of something that's going to be beneficial, or just an open discussion, or some funny stuff too. So definitely enjoy the posts that you do daily. Consistency is key when it comes to social media. I actually just hired a new social media manager that's taken over this week, so I'm super pumped about that. And I had one for a long time, and then the last 6-8 weeks I've kind of dropped off because I had to fire that person, and trying to do everything that we're doing plus doing my own social media takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
super.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. That's what I tell people too. I say, listen, if consultation, like obviously consultation is expensive, but like, hey, I put a ton of free content. So like, if you're not ready for that, no big deal. Go ahead and binge hours of tips and tricks and things I've learned along the way as I've bumped along and grown my business. So, no harm, no foul, but follow the free content if not. But yeah, same thing. Consistency is key there.
Yep. Well, awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate again you coming on. Thank you guys for joining us this week. Follow Merritt Harris. All his information is going to be in the show notes. And next week, definitely want to tune in. I got John Farber talking about bookkeeping. Huge thing this time of year for all of us in the property management business to get our year-end books lined up. So make sure you tune in next week. Talk to you then.